because it's always about what's the barrier. Like if this is where I'm going, but I'm not quite getting there, what's in the way, right?
Right.
One of the quotes I used, I believe it's even in my book, we often feel like we're never supposed to hit a barrier, right?
Yeah.
But we want to be like the river. When the river is flowing and it hits a rock, it doesn't stop,
Yeah.
right? It just flows around the rock. And so you want to practice catching yourself hit the barrier, but not letting the barrier stop you,
Mhm.
allowing yourself to stay open to flow into new ways that you can be around that barrier.
So, Tanya, I've been thinking about trying to reinvent myself as a person, personality wise, how I work with people, right? But I've probably made some assumptions, right? And there are a lot of people trying to do the same thing. So, what's one or two assumptions that I might have made, or that you could tell that this is definitely one assumption that you've made wrong?
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Hi, Aditya. I don't know if I said that right, but thank you for having me on the show to talk about this very, very important conversation. And your question is an amazing one, and it's so spot on because one of the things that I think a lot of people do wrong when we start to talk about reinvention, there are a couple of things. And one of them, I think one of the primary things that we do wrong or we assumptions that we make is that it's all about willpower. And it's
Mm.
not. You cannot will yourself into transformation or reinvention. It
Okay.
literally is a process. Like you want to practice really becoming present and aware to all of the pieces, what's in the way, what
Mm.
do you need to do next, and not be so reactive because we have to remember that who we are, who we think we are, who
Right.
we call ourselves to be
Hmm.
is all a function of the stories that we make up. It's what we
Yeah.
encounter when people tell us who they experience us as. It's who we think we are when we think
Yeah.
about it in our own brain. And we have to remember how automatic our brain is, right? How our brain is designed to keep us protected and keep us safe. And when we want to talk about making transformation or
Hmm.
becoming different or reinventing ourselves, the first step is in reprogramming your autopilot. So
Yeah.
the things that you do now that you don't want to do, you pretty much do them on autopilot.
Yes.
And most people think that I can muscle my way through the autopilot and then make change. But what people find is that they can do that for maybe a week, maybe even a month, some people. But
Hmm.
if you don't focus on really reprogramming the mental pieces that create the stories that give you who you're being, then you're just going to keep in that cycle and you'll keep falling back into those old ways of being. That's a great question.
Now, what I can make out of that answer is that, I mean, when you have an autopilot, it's programmed to do things a certain way based on our own past experiences, right? And probably we'll have to go back and look at what has happened to us and what are the reasons that we are right now as who we are, right? And how we are portraying ourselves to other people. And then if you can work out those gaps and fill out those reasons, right? That this is what is causing me to behave like this. And then that is the whole point of reinvention, isn't it? Trying to break chains or probably something of that sort. I may be wrong, I might be right. You're the expert.
I won't say that's the whole piece of it, but what you're getting at, excuse me, what you're getting at in terms of the autopilot, what you called out correctly is that the autopilot is created based on our past experiences, right? And so
Mhm.
what happens in our brain is we'll have an experience. We experience life through our five senses, right?
Yeah.
What we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we taste, what we smell.
Mhm.
So we experience life, our brain takes in that information through our senses, and then it categorizes it for us. And
Yeah.
it doesn't even take the whole experience. It gets just enough of the sensation, and then it automatically decides, oh, this is like this experience, this is like that experience. And then it gives you
Yeah.
a way of being to try to help keep you safe. And so that is that automatic stuff. But the thing is, when you are reinventing yourself, when you are creating transformation for yourself, you want to practice interrupting that automatic response. And you don't necessarily have to go back and figure out all of the whys and the what happened. Like, you don't necessarily have to do that. It's
Mhm.
helpful for some folks, right? And part
Yeah.
of it is just that's the way our culture has learned to deal with change
Yeah.
and transformation. But the truth is, it's really about being present to what is today.
Yeah.
Where am I today? So, excuse me, in the book I'm putting out, it'll be out in 2026, early 2026. It's called Beyond the Vision Board, using the storyboard method to picture and produce your preferred reality. And
Hmm.
it's all about the steps that I suggest you take when you're in this reinvention transformation process.
Hmm.
It's the process I used as I reinvented myself from several of the things that I noticed weren't serving me in my life.
Okay.
And so I teach a three-act process. So we start with identifying your current reality.
Hmm.
Where are you now? What stories? Because again, it's all about the stories that are running your life
Yeah.
based on your past, right?
Yeah.
What stories are giving me my way of being right now?
Yeah.
So when you can identify what those stories are, who you are today based on the stories you're telling about yourself and the
Hmm.
stories that others are telling about you, now you have your foundation, you have your platform, and you're ready to launch because I know exactly where I am.
Hmm.
Once you know where you are, the next thing I teach is for you to then begin to visualize and get comfortable with where it is you want to go.
Okay.
What's that future that you're desiring to be in, that preferred reality?
Hmm.
So I have you picture your preferred reality, and we go
Yeah.
through a bunch of steps to really get that embodied in your system. The third step is to identify the barriers. Most people will teach you that you need to figure out what steps you need to take to get to the next place.
Yeah.
Those are going to be easy. Those are going to kind of just come, right? Those will be kind of naturally and organically evolving.
Yeah.
The thing that trips us up is there are barriers that we haven't identified
Hmm.
because they're sneaky, right?
Yeah.
Things like the environment, things like the culture, things like your gender identity, things that society says, oh, you can't do that. So we run the story that, oh, I can't do that. And that keeps us from being the greatness that we want to be. So I
Okay.
teach you to look at those barriers,
Hmm.
identify those barriers, and then we look at how real those barriers are, right? And then where, as you're navigating the barriers, where can you take aligned and intentional action to shift the barriers from where they are? Let me
Hmm.
give you an example. One of the issues that I have, one of the barriers that I have been personally overcoming is the barrier of bureaucracy. And so, one of the places that I have been reinventing myself is in my career. A few over the last couple of years, actually several years, it's happened in a couple of different career areas. I've spent a lot of my time, a lot of my career was spent leading and managing public agencies. I worked in law enforcement, corrections, things like
Hmm.
that. And what I discovered is that the systems, and I think all folks in some way, shape, or form run up against systemic barriers. Now, I'm
Yeah.
going to speak from the lens of a Black woman, and I think my story will translate to anyone who deals with systemic barriers, but I'm going to tell it through the lens of a Black woman. So, as a Black woman, one of the systemic barriers that emerges as a story
Hmm.
is that as a Black woman, you have to do twice as much to get half as far, right? I'm
Right.
sure we've heard that story before, right? And that story is so ingrained in Black culture. Like we
Okay.
grow up hearing that's who you have to be in the world. You have to work extra hard. You have to do the most, et cetera, et cetera. And what that creates, the story then creates an archetype. For me, it created the archetype of an overachiever.
Okay.
So I became an overachiever. So the barrier, the systemic barrier of
Mhm.
not being accepted as being intelligent or a good worker or whatever those systemic things have been over the years, it turned into a story. I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And that story became my way of being, my character,
Mhm.
my personality, the overachiever,
Yeah.
right? I started doing too much, not too much, but I lived in this lens of excellence. I had to be perfect. I got to get it right. I got to do it this way, that way, etc. And I know a lot of us have had that experience.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the barrier that we have to learn to get over.
Hmm.
As I started this work, my my attempts used to be to power through it, right? Oh, I'm just going to not do this and I'm just going to not do that and I'm going to blah blah blah. But that autopilot is so on point
Yeah.
that every time I thought I would just power through it with my willpower or my strength or whatever, the brain would just not cooperate.
Yeah.
It just would not cooperate. And so, what I started to discover in my own life is things like meditation,
Hmm.
being able to slow down your thoughts so that you can put space between the stimulus, what's happening out here, and your response, how you are going to engage with whatever just happened in your life.
Yeah.
And when I started really understanding that, oh, this is the step, like it's really important to have that space where you can pause the autopilot and then put something in its place.
Uh-huh.
One of the frameworks I teach for that is it's a cognitive behavioral technique. It's called catch it, check it, change it. I call it triple C. Okay.
Okay.
And so what that means is when you are in the process of reinventing yourselves and you've identified a pattern or a behavior or a
Mhm.
habit that
Yeah.
doesn't work for who you're trying to be going forward,
Yeah.
the first thing you want to do is become present to when that behavior is active, right? Whenever you find yourself engaging in that pattern, you catch it.
Uh-huh.
Even if you catch it a day later, oh, that's what was happening. You want to train yourself to start to recognize when those behaviors are at play. The first thing you do is catch it. After you catch it, then you want to check it. And by checking it, what that means is get curious. Ask yourself some questions. What's going on here? What is this about? This isn't how I want to be showing up. So, what is happening that's not letting me show up in the way that I want to show up? So, you want to start to really check what's going on. Once you get curious and you ask yourself those questions and you deal with the answers
Mhm.
that come out, now is the beauty where you get to change how you respond.
Yeah.
Okay. And just like your brain created the patterns that you're currently running, the more you pause and change your internal response, then you're creating new neural pathways. So your autopilot then becomes the new preferred behavior that you want. It
Right.
takes time. A
Hmm.
lot of people don't give it the time. They think, oh, well, if I did this for 30 days and it didn't happen, then clearly I'm just never going to change. But that's not true. I usually tell people that I coach and work with, look, for example, I'm 50. I'm 50. Oh, I'm 51. Sorry. I would say, look, I'm 51. It took me 51 years to get here,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to go away in 24 hours or even 24 days, maybe not even 24 months. We're talking 50 years of ingrained ways of being.
Yeah.
And so I really like to suggest that we give ourselves as much time as we took to get here to change and transition that behavior into something that's more beneficial or more aligned with what we're creating.
Right. I mean, so yeah, talking about so much about autopilot, right? Now, there's a different aspect of being on autopilot that I want to talk about, right? Getting rage baited and clickbaited into doing something, right? Especially on the internet, if you get what I'm referring to, right? You see something on social media, you're scrolling things, and you see like, oh, this is click. I mean, you don't even realize that you're being prompted to just react to it and say something that it's not even worthwhile talking about, right? Now, this is something, okay, I've fallen trapped with. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have that huge urge, oh, I cannot stop without reacting to this post, right? There is a comment that I need to put down, right? But yeah, I've tried to do it. I'm getting successful at that, like 50-50 success rate at this point. I know. But yeah, looking at how you've been doing it, what's the, I mean, how do you pull yourself out of rage bait, clickbait?
That is such a good question because I too, I call chasing squirrels, right? I'm really quick. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. I'll be all over the place. And what I personally do is the minute I catch it, I check it, and then I say, oh, that is not what I'm doing. And then I'll just stop right there and then go back to whatever it was that I was doing.
Hmm.
The real key here, what I think you're really getting at, and if not, I think it's definitely an underlying tone, is to not judge yourself. Don't beat up on yourself. I'm not a failure. I didn't mess it up or whatever. It's a process. And
Yeah.
so if you find yourself scrolling and getting distracted or falling for the clickbait today, that's okay. Allow yourself to fall. Oh, that's what that was. I fell for the clickbait. Got it. Check it and then change it and then go and engage in the behavior that you choose instead
Hmm.
of the behavior that your autopilot made you do,
Right.
right? Because it really is about finding that balance for yourself and not
Hmm.
allowing yourself to just function on the autopilot.
Okay, there's this one question that's just biting me at the back of my head here. Okay, as you mentioned, right? So catch it. I mean, as you mentioned, okay, I fell for it. So you caught it, right? But you caught it later, right? And then you check it and say that, yeah, this will be the change, right? But then this is retroactive, right? Oh, I remember that I fell for this. Okay, and I'll probably think, yeah, I'll change it next time, right? But how often is it that the next time never comes, right? You'll probably fall for it again and you'll get into that same loop and you'll retroactively think, oh, I fell for it again and probably not do it the next time. How do you get out of this particular loop? It's just there, right?
You know, um, you get out of the loop by staying in it, if that makes any sense, right? And so, what I mean is, every time you catch it, check it, and change it, you're training yourself to catch it sooner.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think this is a piece that a lot of us miss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I'm on my computer and I'm saying, oh, well, I'm going to do this, and then I'm distracted by clickbait, and I don't catch it until I'm 30 minutes into the clickbait. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not what I was supposed to be doing. So then I check it and then I change it because I say, this isn't aligned. I'm going back to what I said I was doing because
Mm-hmm.
that is you training yourself to stay in alignment with who it is that you say you're becoming, this
Uh,
reinvention that you're creating.
yeah.
And every single time you do it, it's a win. Now, here's what I encourage you to do. As you are catching yourself, go into that. You want to celebrate yourself every time you catch it, whether you catch it in the middle of it, whether you catch it 2 days later, whether you catch it before you go in.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you celebrate it, when you like, oh, I see that. Now you're telling your brain, we're also tuning into this thing.
Hmm.
Okay. It
Yeah.
really, the work here is about being intentional. It
Hmm.
really is about being intentional, being present to what's happening in your life every single moment,
Yeah.
every single moment. And it feels overwhelming. It can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming to try to be present for every single thing.
Yeah.
And just take it like a grain of salt,
Hmm.
right? That's another thing that I think we do. I know I do this a lot, and I've been on this journey for many years. And I'm just starting over like the last maybe year and a half or so. I'm really just starting to find that rhythm
Hmm.
where I'm not beating up on myself when I don't do what it is that I said I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm really supportive and encouraging myself as I'm in the process of uncovering the things that are in the way,
Okay.
right? Because it's always about what's the barrier? Like, if this is where I'm going, but I'm not quite getting there, what's in the way, right?
Right.
One of the quotes I used, I believe it's even in my book, we often feel like we're never supposed to hit a barrier, right?
Yeah.
But we want to be like the river. When the river is flowing and it hits a rock, it doesn't stop,
Yeah.
right? It just flows around the rock. And so you want to practice catching yourself hit the barrier, but not letting the barrier stop you,
Hmm.
allowing yourself to stay open to flow into new ways that you can be around that barrier.
Makes a lot of sense, right? Now, let's talk about the other side of the story, right? Somebody who's creating that clickbait as creator. Because, right, you and me, we're sitting here creating a content piece, right? Creating a podcast video and sitting and chatting about people not doing stuff. And then we want them to look at this stuff, right? We want them to look at what we're making and then trying to create clickbait out of it. Sometimes maybe, but then at least give them value while they're clickbaiting and getting into this stuff, right? So on that point, do you actually subscribe to the idea that, yeah, obviously there has to be some hook, but then how does it work out for you? Or what is your psychology to creating valuable content?
Well, my psychology is to create the content that the people who are aligned with my message will receive.
Hmm.
Um, I do not, I don't necessarily consider, and maybe it's something to kind of kick around as I continue forward, but I haven't necessarily considered that psychology in terms of my content being a distraction.
Uh-huh.
I always look at it from the lens of my content is what they want. So
Yeah.
that's what they're going to click, right? And they're going to, because they're going to align with the message.
Right.
And that people are drawn to my content because it's in alignment with
Hmm.
what they are actually doing.
Hmm.
So if they are clicking on my content, then great. That's what I want them to do.
Yeah.
Even if they discover that my content is the distraction that took them off key from whatever they were doing,
Yeah.
what I would hope they would do, even if they were doing catch it, check it, change it,
Hmm.
if they say, oh, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, save, I'm going to come back to that later. And then I'm going to go back and do what I was doing. So that one, you're able to give your brain space to examine some of what it was pulled off to examine. But then you're also containing it to say, got it, but that's not exactly what we're doing right now. I'm glad we caught that. Save it, file that away. We'll come back to it later. And then I'm going to go back to what I was focused on. And it really is just training your brain to do what you say as opposed to your brain telling you who to be and what to do.
That actually makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, if I don't want to distract people, right? I want them to be listening to what we are talking about only when they want to. And if they're not, then probably they need to relook at what they've been doing. They need to look at their priorities again straight, right? Not trying to offend my listeners, but then again, I will have to talk about it, right? That is how life is. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but then again, creating valuable content is the whole story, right? If you're trying to spread knowledge, it has to be in a form in which people are willing to take it, right? Some people prefer it in short bursts of, right, reels or shorts videos that you call them, or sometimes people like to watch the whole episode of this podcast. So, what's your preferable way? Do you like to give them a full piece of, like, a course full of content, or do you give them short bites and then like tips and tricks? What's working for your audience?
I actually do some of all of it.
Hmm.
So I do have some full-length videos on my YouTube page. I have some just regular posts, and then I don't do a lot of shorts, but I'm starting to play around with that medium as well.
Hmm.
And for me, it's about broadening the reach, right? Because everybody's attention span is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And when we look at the learning styles, right, we're either audio, visual, or kinesthetic. And
Hmm.
so you want to try to have content that reaches people at their place.
Yeah.
And so if I focus on one, then I'm ruling out a whole bunch of people that won't be able to benefit from information that I'm sharing because I'm not sharing it in a way that they can receive it. So I do like to cover all of the learning styles in what I deliver. And yeah, I think that is what makes a difference.
Yeah, that definitely does. I mean, trying to be where your audience is the main point, right? We want to be where
Yeah.
people can take us in the form that they want to take it. And yeah, that's how sometimes people just have different styles of and trying to reinvent themselves, probably. Okay. So before I close, Tanya, how can people get in touch with you? And yeah, sorry, I did not ask that earlier.
Oh, no problem, no problem, no problem. I have a website. You can reach me at levelupcoaching.info. So www.levelupcoaching.info. You can email me directly at Tanya, Tanya, at levelupcoaching.info. It's the easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Okay. I was just
And
about to,
also, I
yeah, go
do
ahead.
have, also just note, I do have a new book coming out, Beyond the Vision Board,
Hmm.
using the storyboard method to picture and produce your preferred reality. And you can also find that landing page. You can find that information on my website as well, so that you can sign up and get insert or updates on when the book is coming out and where we are in publication. So.
Okay, just one last question. Please keep it short. What's one question that you've been getting on social media a lot, and then what would be the answer to that? It just came up in my head for some odd reason.
The main question that I keep seeing on social media would be really like people are asking a lot about the stories, right? Where are the stories coming from? How do you identify the stories? And really trying to grasp the triple C, the catch it,
Yeah.
check it, change it.
Hmm.
And just helping people get that the story, it's
Hmm.
not good, it's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong. It
Hmm.
just is.
Ah,
Okay.
yes.
And helping people, because those are the questions, right? Or that's the experience people are having, is they're trying to justify their story.
Yeah.
Well, this is my story, and that's where we get hung up. And those are the questions that I'm seeing when I'm talking to people.
All right. Thank you so much, Tanya. It's been a great conversation talking about reinvention and then going into social media. And for some odd reason, we were also talking about so many other things. Thank you so much for joining in. And to the audience who's been watching and listening intently, do leave a like. I'm sure you liked it. The comment section is open for questions, perspectives, or any other query you might have. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you've not subscribed yet. Thank you so much for joining in, and thank you so much, Tanya, for joining.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Have a wonderful rest of your week.